Good afternoon and welcome to the SitRep. I hope you're well. What's going on here? No. A critical error. That's never good. I hope you're doing well. Today is the 2nd of November. I haven't done a SitRep in a hot minute. So I thought I'd jump on. It's the evening time, 5 p.m. I don't usually do one at this time, but here I am doing one. And I just figured out what was going on with my audio recording, so that should be working now. So if you're listening to this on the audio version, you would have just come in halfway through a sentence. It could be very confusing for you. I apologize, but suck it up. Here's what it is. Thanks for joining me again. I'm very tired. I've had a full day of work. I've had a couple of days of work actually in a row. But there's a lot of shit going on, and I haven't dropped a SitRep in a few days. So I thought, you know what? I'm getting a backlog of information coming at me, and I've got to get some of it out at least. So there's still like probably 100 plus little data points that I haven't even looked at yet, because I'm like, I can't touch on this right now. So I'll just do kind of retrospective the last 48 hours, because there's some big stuff going on at the moment that I want to talk about. Some situations that are more in that geopolitical space. So if you're not really interested in the geopolitical kind of stuff, those shenanigans, just drop out now. Don't bother listening. But if you are interested in that, if you're interested in what's going on in the world as a whole, and in particular with the rising tensions in some of the theaters of war or quasi-war that we're seeing at the moment, then stay tuned, because that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, so let's get into it. If I can find, let me move my cameras around here. If I can find my stuff. Here we go. First thing I wanted to jump into here, this is all about the UK versus Russia, because there's a lot of tension increasing here between these two nations, UK and Russia. At least a lot of stuff that's in the media right now. It's a whole heap of finger pointing, and mainly Russia pointing the finger at UK for doing some funny stuff. But here's some interesting stuff that I saw that I thought I'd point out. Western media is reporting about how Russia is saying, hey, UK have done this, and have done this. And just to give you a couple of examples of what they've said they've done, they were directly involved, if not the perpetrator, of the Nord Stream attack. They were directly involved, if not the perpetrator, of the recent attack in Crimea, just off the coast of Crimea, of Russian ships, which has now caused Russia to pull out of the grain deal, which has thrown another spanner into the works of the world grain situation as we're looking at it. So Russia's pointing those fingers. Where has this come from? Well, let's also throw into this, UK politicians demand inquiry into Liz Truss phone hack claim. So they're saying, hey, Russia has hacked former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss for 15 minutes. She was PM from like the morning to mornos. Now she's out. That got hacked. How does this affect things? Well, if I'm looking at this, and what I'm thinking here is like, why would they let that kind of information out? What's behind them actually putting it? Who benefits from this information being out there, and why are they sort of doing it? Well, again, looking a little bit cloak and dagger, maybe even a little bit, just a tiny bit of tinfoil hat. It's a little bit off to the side. It's not quite snugly on the head today, but it's a little bit off to the side, that we're seeing Russia come out and make these sort of claims about UK. Where are they getting that information from? Why do they think that the UK has actually perpetrated these attacks? What evidence do they have? Obviously, they've got a number of pieces of evidence that they can see from circumstantial evidence of what's actually happening there, and maybe things that they've collected from debris of drones and things like that, but also the information side of things. Then it comes out that the PM's phone has been hacked. Now, this wasn't actually that new. the hacking. This was going back a little bit of time, but I just find this interesting. I find this super fascinating that this has sort of come out now. And if I'm looking at it, I'm going, these two things don't sit in total vacuum from each other. All right, these two things aren't just two coincidences that are happening right now. There is some connection here between these two, and like I'm not going to really spell out what I'm thinking here, but you can draw your own conclusions of what I'm thinking about here. Just a quick shout out, Bulge on YouTube. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for everyone who's joining me on YouTube right now. Good to see you, dude. Rambodian, g'day to you. Every time I get a day off and catch up on the world events, it's escalated. Yes, that's what I'm seeing at the moment. In fact, like I said, I wasn't even going to do one of these till probably tomorrow morning. I'm like, I'm going to have a whole heap of new things in tomorrow morning to talk about. So I want to just get this stuff, clear it off the shoulders, as it were, get this kind of information out there and see if this benefits anyone from listening to it. It's going from I'm interesting to I'm getting concerned really quickly, which I think is not necessarily bad. We don't need to be anxious about the world, ladies and gents. I just think we need to be wary right now. What I'm seeing right now develop in the news, it does kind of show me that we're getting to that point. We're getting to a point. We're getting to that point. I'm teaching a course today. A number of my friends are on the course, all ex-military, and we're starting to seriously consider. I'm going, look, I've got way too many problems. I'm way too old to be dragged into the military, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility right now, is it? For dudes like myself, falling apart, broken, there is no way. If I went to the army right now and said, hey, can I join back up? They'd be like, no, here's your problems. You cannot pass muster as far as we're concerned. But if the need is great enough, I could see this happening. This is sort of like, this is how I'm feeling, at least. Okay, this is not news. All right, this is not factual news. This is me expressing how I'm feeling about the world right now, just so no one gets their little knickers in a knot about that. Commie Hunter says World War III will be around the corner. Yes. Also says Iran planning to go to war with the Saudis, last I heard. Yes, I did see that. I didn't snap that photo because I'm like, this is something actually I'm going to leave for tomorrow because it's developing news right now and I want to get my head around it. But it does look like there seems to be some Saudi-Iran conflict underway at the moment. Not conflict underway, but developing as we speak right now. More UK stuff. The UK's actually been responding to the Russian accusation over Nord Stream. I'll let you guess what their response is. Obviously, they're denying it. Like, they're not going to come out and say, "Oh man, Russia, you caught us, you rascals. It was us. We did it." By the way, Germany, sorry about that gas thing that you're not going to have any come winter, but. They're obviously not going to come out and say that they did it. They're obviously going to come out and say, like, this is Russian propaganda. And maybe it is. I don't know. But what we're starting to see here is shoes that look like they fit feet. Let me put it that way. There's some stuff coming in now that we're like, yeah, that kind of does make sense, actually. So, Bulge says, somewhere in the world you're needed for guerrilla crew, Red Dawn style. Yeah. Well, you know that more than almost anyone else, my friend, because you're part of it too. Little bit of an interesting thing on nuclear sort of stuff here. US has lost global leadership in nuclear power, says the IAEA chief. Try saying that 3 times fast. That's the International Atomic Energy Agency. Has basically, the Director General, Rafael Grossi, has come out and said, look, US is no longer number one when it comes to nuclear power. That is now Russia and or China. Or if we put those two together, those two. Essentially, it's not US though. This is kind of a big deal. Like I keep saying, I think nuclear power is probably the only way that as a society, we're not going to go into collapse as far as energy goes. I don't think, unless some other black swan event of technological importance comes along that changes everything, nuclear is really one of the only ways that we're going to be able to get around the problems that we're seeing at the moment, which are going to get much worse. I believe they'll get much worse. So the IAEA is coming out now and saying, the West, and led by the great master US, no longer in charge of that. Now, this is yet another brick in the wall that is falling on the side of the bricks. I didn't even mean to say that when I said brick in the wall. I wasn't even there. No, some sort of weird pun thing going on in my head, but I'm going to leave it. Skip over that. Let's talk about inflation for a second in Europe, because this is a big deal. They've just started seeing some new data come in, and it is finally being admitted to hit that double-digit figures. So I'm watching this from the outside, and I'm watching these double digits like stingingly, like every nation, unless it's way out of proportion, they're going, no, we're at 8.7. No, we're at 9.4. Like I can see them like doing backflips and doing all sorts of maths magic in the background to just try and bring it under 10, because as soon as it hits that double figure, people look at that and go like, oh, hang on, this is serious. There's two numbers there. And yes, that is what I think most humans' capacity to actually think about things where it actually sits. They're just like, wait, two numbers? That's much. That's muchness more than the other one. But it is kind of true. Like people look at 10% and it looks a lot more than 9.7, even though there's fuck all difference between those two numbers. Anyway, Germany's just peaked at 10.4. Other things involved in there too. Energy prices, unsurprisingly, 43% higher than they were in October, or up in October, sorry, than they were a year ago. Eurozone across the board is at 10.7. That's pretty bad. Inflation. On top of that, growth has actually slowed to 0.2% in the third quarter. These might just be abstract numbers to you, and that's fine. But this is kind of important information that's coming down. Just start to wrap your head around it. And all you need to know is this: inflation, big, getting bigger. And these numbers, I believe, are way off. They're lying about them. They're doing everything they can to fudge them. 10% for me, I'm thinking 18, maybe even hitting that magic 20% barrier in some places. But the way they calculate inflation is very tricky. I'll put it that way. The other thing is growth. Slowing growth is not good. That's also heading in the wrong way to kind of dig yourself out of inflation. Now, I'm just flicking through a whole heap of stories here because there is some interesting stuff that I want to get to. Here it is. The Eurozone, 10.7%. This ranges from all the way down the bottom, France at 7.1%. So that's the best. That's the best situation right now, as France has 7.1% inflation. The worst is Estonia with 22.4% inflation. So some of these countries are doing it hard. And just to give you the scope of it here, the data actually says Germany's at 11.6 on this one. So super interesting. All the way from 1 to 11, they're all in double digits there. It's not till we hit 12, Greece at 9.8. This is only trending one way, and it's only going to continue to trend one way for Europe in the foreseeable future, when we start to just consider the shortages that they're going to face. And those shortages are going to cause increased prices, and increased price is inflation. So that's what they're looking at right now. Polish inflation hits a 25-year high of 17.9%. Damn. Can you hear that? I'm in a hotel room, by the way, working. It sounded like somebody was trying to inflate a hot air balloon right next to me, like it was like a jet going off right next to me. All right, let's come back to Australia now, because this stuff's pretty interesting to me, at least. This is coming out of the Global Times. If you don't know what the Global Times is, this is Chinese propaganda. US turns Australia into forward base against China with B-52 bombers deployed. So a bit of a plan's come out, and US has said, hey, we're gonna pre-deploy B-52s. I think 6 was the number that they said, 6 nuclear-capable B-52s. I love how they chuck in nuclear-capable. Yes, they're nuclear-capable. They're also capable of not carrying nuclear weapons, by the way, just FYI. But yes, they can carry nuclear weapons. They are being deployed to Tyndall Air Base in Darwin. This is not outrageously unfathomably new information or anything. The US does deploy a lot of their assets to Australia for exercise purposes. Well, exercise purposes, but have done this for a long time. Marines, they've essentially got like almost a quasi marine base in Australia at any given time. So, like this is adding to it, but obviously we're trending somewhere. Australia is very much throwing their hat into the ring with the US. But again, this is nothing new. And news reports like this that are coming out at the moment that are saying, oh, look, Australia, and there's been some pushback from this sort of stuff from the Australian side of things. So this is a report that came out of ABC originally. So the Australian broadcast company, who, think whatever you will of them, have come out and said this. And my take on it is in an inflammatory way. They're like, look what the US is doing. Are they taking over Australia? They're pushing us into a war. And it's like, seriously, we've been in this war. We are in this war. We need to accept that we're in this war, and we need to take what assets we can right now. 6 B-52? We need 60 B-52s here. And, 5 full, ready to go units of Marines. We need to go 5 times what we've got here already. We need as much as we can get down here. My take on it is, at least, does this make Australia more of a target? Well, no. Yeah, I don't think it does make Australia more of a target, because we're already a target. If we get into a fracas here with China, if this thing kicks off with China, where do you think we're going to end up? Like, where do these people actually think we're going to go? Do they think like, oh, yep, all right, China's taken over Taiwan, but let's go the diplomatic route, and let's just actually say to China, yes, it's cool that you've taken over Taiwan. Meanwhile, let's pump money over to Ukraine, where the exact same situation has just occurred. No, Australia is clearly going to fall on the side of Taiwan, on the side of the US. That's always going to happen, and not defending ourselves, sticking our heads in the sand about it, is not going to make it any better for us. Just in case you couldn't tell, that was all my opinion. Did I mention I was tired today? I just got cut off by someone in traffic, and it just incensed me. Anyway, Bulge says Mandarin lessons will be the next mandate. Yeah. Maybe. What am I looking at here? Let's skip over that. I've just got a ton of stories here, so I'm just trying to cut to the more interesting stuff. Reuters reporting that Russian Defense Ministry says movement of ships along the Black Sea security corridor is unacceptable, but stresses Russia is suspending, not withdrawing, from the Black Sea initiative. So Ukraine saying that it's going to press on with the export deal. This is all around the grain that's coming out. Obviously, the Russian ships that got attacked that I talked about at the start today. Russia said, that's it, we're out. We're out of this deal now. You do this on your own. Reuters is actually reporting on this, and they're saying, well, what Russia's actually saying is that they're just not going to secure it anymore, which is what they were doing. So from the Russian side, just so you understand this, from the Russian side, and this is from Russian propaganda, just so you know where it's actually coming from. What they said happened, Ukraine, our side came out and said, Ukraine, great victory. They just came in and used these drones and attacked these Russian ships and sunk these ships, and it's great victory for Ukraine in the West and democracy and blah, 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 all that kind of crap. Russia came out and said, those ships were there to protect that grain deal we had. Plus, why is UK involved in this? UK was the one who actually perpetrated this attack, which I actually find more like, I'm not saying it's true or not, but I find that story much more likely than the Ukraine doing it off their own bat and having those resources and actually coordinating such an attack off their own bat. I'm not saying Ukraine didn't do it, and I'm not saying Ukraine wasn't involved in doing it. I'm just saying that they did it by themselves. Probably not. Not from my perspective, at least. And anyway, Russia's just said, well, those ships were there to protect the grain. We're not protecting any grain. Anything could happen now. Let's see what happens. I read this as a massive veiled warning. a massive veiled warning from Russia being like, well, let's see how that works out for you. Because, anyone could attack it. Could be pirates, could be us, could be a pirate, though. Could also be us. We could attack it. Yeah. Obviously, just the increase in tension here is going exponential, but this is also built around that food system that I'm always so worried about, that I always love talking about, because this affects the world. This is going to affect, or already has affected, grain price. And I think I talked about that in the last SitRep, how instantly this news came out and grain price went up we go. And that's not grain price in Ukraine. It's not grain price where this is going, which the grain is going to Africa, but it's not. It's actually just going to Europe. Certainly it affected the price there. Also affected the price here in Australia. Also affected the price in New Zealand. Also affected the price in Guatemala. Also affected the price in Lima. Like, what? None of that grain was going there, but it doesn't matter. If it increases the price of grain, it increases the price of grain everywhere. That's what we end up seeing. Spice Gal 27 said, my parents had 17% interest rates. When I assume that's when they were back in the day. Just so everyone can wrap their head around that. Back in the 80s, there was 70s and 80s. We had, well, especially the 80s, very high interest rates. Interest rates now are very, very low. But what I was talking about before wasn't interest rates. This is inflation. Different things. Interest rates are something that are quite often raised in order to curtail inflation rates. Interest rate is what interest is being charged on any given loan anywhere, pretty much. The idea being, if you can increase those rates, this is a very poor explanation of one of the mechanisms that the RBA would use, that increase interest rates. Everyone goes, oh, money's tighter now because we've got to pay more in interest on our loans. So let's spend less. So there's less spending. So then inflation gets dragged back down with that because there's less demand for buying. That's one of the theories. I don't know if it'll work this time, though. More information coming out here of what I was just talking about before, though. Fear of global food shortage looms as Russia steps back from Ukraine grain deal, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of it. Let's have a quick chat about countries increasing tensions right now and going into war footing. What we're seeing, Norway has just put its military on a heightened alert starting, this was yesterday, so starting today. This was tomorrow, yesterday. You know what I'm talking about, right? Have I mentioned I'm tired? I've got more information about this somewhere. I should have ordered this before I jumped on. Serbia's threatening again. So it looks like Serbia is definitely going into a war footing because they, like I just talked about with Norway, are putting their army in a state of readiness. So they're increasing the readiness of their military. We've seen increases, attempted increases within the US military. We've seen increases within the Russian military, definitely. Obviously increases within the Ukraine military. We've seen information being dropped from UK generals saying they're going to up their game here as well. This is across the board, and I just like to throw these data points out there so that it's adding to the picture. If you're watching over a time period of me warbling on as I am right now, you'll start to get this picture. We're going, oh, okay, yeah, countries are increasing their war standings right now. We're seeing increases in the spending on defense budgets. We're seeing increases in the amount of people within militaries, and we're seeing increases in the state of readiness like Serbia is doing right now. It's not necessarily all to do with Russia, by the way. Despite what the Western media will be telling you, Serbia is not necessarily anything to do with what's going on in Ukraine. It's been revealed too that US troops are on the ground in Ukraine. A small number of US military forces inside Ukraine have recently begun doing on-site inspections to ensure that Ukrainian troops are properly accounting for the Western-provided weapons they receive. This comes off the back of another report, which I didn't snap, which was from Finland, I believe, that was saying, I'm pretty sure it was Finland, that their government came out and said, hey, a huge amount of these tools of war, the weapons that we're providing Ukraine, are going directly into criminal activity. They're not hitting the front line. They're not defending democracy. I mean, they're kind of defending a free market, if anything, because they come into Ukraine for free and then they go, sweet, do you want to buy this? Hey, money, excellent. That's what we're seeing. And if you're one of those weird people who have been listening to me for a very long time, when this first kicked off and it was when the first weapon shipment went into Ukraine, I said exactly this. This is exactly what's going to happen. I mean, we saw this. I mean, I saw this firsthand when I was in Afghanistan. And for a number of years, the weapons that came into Afghanistan that we would use to supply the Afghan army, the Afghan National Police, a lot of that would just disappear, go off into other places. It's so obvious that happens, and how anyone thinks it's going to be any different in the Ukraine is just beyond me. Like, how did you not see that coming? And yet the US has just signed off to spend more money. And yet yesterday, Zelensky came out and said, hey, look, I've tested the wind. Looks like Republicans are going in. And so he's kind of put the hard word out there saying, look, Republicans, make sure you're doing your duty for democracy and continue supporting Ukraine. We're going to need weapons still. We're going to need money now. We're going to need lots of money to keep our government propped up, to keep this all working. So we know you're coming into power next, so you better do your duty. I find it interesting that a lot of the stuff, at least a lot of the ways it's being perpetrated or put out there at the moment, seems like Zelensky's very demanding. Like, are you really in that kind of position now? This was a super interesting one that was sent to me just before from one of my main sources through Instagram. 425 shelters being prepared in Kiev in case of possible nuclear strike. I find it surprising that this is only happening now. But the Kiev Oblast Military Administration hopes to prepare 425 special shelters in case of a nuclear strike by Russia in the next 2 weeks. The shelters will be equipped with portable, battery-powered radios. I hope they're actually equipped with a lot more than that. Maybe potassium iodine, maybe water, clean drinking water. Might be some good things to actually put in there. But yeah, more information, more data points that are just coming out saying, hey, like this nuclear thing, it's not going away. In fact, it's heading the opposite way. We are getting daily. In fact, I would say hour by hour, I feel we are going incrementally more towards midnight. I'm of course referring to midnight as in the doomsday clock. If you don't know what the doomsday clock is, it's just a kind of a propaganda tool, really. But it's also kind of interesting. There's a bunch of scientists back, I think they did in the 50s. They created this clock and they said, hey, midnight means nuclear war, end of the world, apocalypse, like it's all over. How close are we to midnight? And in case you haven't figured it out yet, we're closer to midnight now than we ever have been. I think it got out to like 90 seconds to midnight back in the 90s when everything was pretty cool. We're all pretty happy. We're all watching Friends and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Things were pretty chilled. Had, some sweet rollerblades. What else was going on in the 90s? Michael Jordan was dominating the NBA. We weren't really thinking about too many like full-on world wars or anything. The wall had just fallen in 89. Like, we won. Yay, democracy, the West, we're the best. Anyway, it's no longer there. I haven't checked it lately, but I have a feeling it's like 8 seconds, 4 seconds, maybe. It's like getting pretty close, and I can just feel like reading these stories. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of just almost watch that thing like about to tick over, get that little bit closer. And here is yet another data point that shows us that. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff has announced that its forces have launched 3 air-to-ground missiles into waters north of Korea maritime border. Do you understand what north of Korea's maritime border is? What's north of Korea? North Korea? Ah. So north of Korea's maritime border, in response to 10 missiles that were fired into the ocean by North Korea earlier. This is one of the stories. I was going to just leave this one, but this one is rapidly escalating before our eyes right now. Like, you can jump on the news right now and be tracking this one, because this could blow up. Again, I talk about the kind of smiley face of doom. That's a cool name for it. Let's call it that. The smiley face of doom that kind of starts up in the Ukraine, where we've got something that could potentially go nuclear at any second now. And then we actually can go down there and we can go look at, I'm going to miss a few here, but there's so many. Turkey, Greece. Okay, that's another thing. Luckily, Azerbaijan, Armenia, it looks like it might be easing off. But that has been there as well. The entire Middle East right now. So, like I mentioned before, and like Commie Hunter rightly put up there before, Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran and Israel, Lebanon, Israel, like this entire area here is a tinderbox that could go up at any second. Throw Syria in there as well. Why not? We can continue going down because there's a number of different places. So we're kind of starting up here and we're going down and around. You know, we're looking at Pakistan. We're looking at what could go there. Pakistan, India, Pakistan within itself, India, China, on both fronts as well. We're looking at collapse potentially happening in Bangladesh. Whew. All right, what else we got going on here? Now we get around to China, Taiwan. Then we move up and we've got North Korea, South Korea, and then we've got Russia and Japan up in there as well. So, like I said, this whole like crescent of doom, the smiley face of doom throughout the world at the moment, and this one looks like it's becoming the flavor of the minute right now. South Korea and North Korea, so eyes on that one. Like I said at the top of this one, this is going to be more geopolitical, more higher stuff, not necessarily what's going on in Australia, although there was actually a particular threat to Australia in there with the US putting in these B-52s or forward positioning B-52s into Darwin. And my take on that was I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but that's just me. Feel free to argue that if you want. Certainly, I don't want to live in a world with people who are just yes and agreeing. I want to hear some lively debate. So if you think I'm a dickhead, let me know. No, actually, don't let me know that I'm a dickhead. Just go like, hey, I don't agree with you. I get enough of that from my like more slick videos that I post up on YouTube, where people are like, oh, you're fucking wrong. You're a dickhead. You don't know shit. Like, okay, all right, fair enough. But anyway, that's the SitRep for this afternoon. I'm going to leave it there. This was a little bit doom and gloomy, but it's not all bad news by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly not for us down here in Australia and New Zealand. We've still got plenty of time. Things are still pretty good here. Nothing's going wrong right here, right now. We have time to prepare. And really, no matter where you are in the world, I still believe you've got time to prepare. And I'm not saying anything's going to go wrong in the next little bit. I'm just saying we're declining into a slightly worse place. I think there will be more conflicts in the world coming up. More conflicts equal more restriction of supply for things in the world, which increases prices in an already inflated situation that we're looking at. So save yourself some money. Go and buy up stuff now. I was in Costco just yesterday doing a little bit more buying up. And just keep chipping away at it. You don't have to go drop, like, remortgage the house and drop all your life savings on your crazy preps right now and stick them in a bunker somewhere. Just keep chipping away. Keep copycanning. Keep buying a little bit more every week. And, just keep an eye on the news to see what's coming down the pipeline. Get ahead of the curve. That's what this channel is all about. That's what all prepping should be all about. Not fear-mongering, not looking at things and going like, oh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Just looking at stuff and going like, okay, I want to try and get ahead of the curve. I want to see what's happening and go, okay, yep, I think we're going to have a run on toilet paper, so I'll go get mine now. That's a joke. Don't go fucking, you should have plenty of toilet paper, all right? But if you want to go get toilet paper, now's a good time. It's good and cheap. and it's there, as everything is. Anyway, gang, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your comments, each and every one of you. I appreciate just your silent, voyeuristic watching, if that's what you're doing, lurking in the shadows. Just like, what is he saying now? I'm joking, of course. I appreciate everyone being here. Virgin Gen 17, thank you very much. I appreciate the comment. You guys are grouse. Absolutely grouse. Keep doing the good stuff. Keep encouraging others to do it as well. More prepared people we can have in a society, the better off that society will be in the long run. So start nurturing your own preparation, start nurturing your family's preparation, start encouraging those around you to do it, encourage your community to do it, and make those connections within your community. Create strong, resilient communities by creating a strong, resilient human being in yourself. Until next time, keep prepping, gang. Get out in the garden if you can. Start growing stuff. The weather is turning good. Oh, it was freaking freezing here today, I got to admit. But it'll get better. Hope you're all well, healthy, happy, and until next time, Semper Paratus.